wasn't that all very fun? And welcome here to WestWords today. We're going to have a real treat today, which is to be able to hear from Dr Luke Carman and also Mihaela Cristescu about their journey of collaboration. This session is called Met in Translation, and I think it's a really wonderful way for us to be able to uncover and sort of hear about the long-term collaboration. So, of course, it has resulted in this very fine publication, a Glovebox of one's own, or Un Torpedou, numai, is that close? Great. You barely have one language, so please forgive me as I mangle yours. But first, I'll start by saying that this is a very special book because it is a bilingual book. When you open it up, it has, those who have cracked open their cellophane, it has English on one side and in Romanian on the other. And if you're like me, you like to dart back and forth between languages and pretend to be clever, we can kind of see the shape of the sentences as they're echoing and mirroring each other. It's also a very unique book in that it comprises of 3 of Luke's essays, one which comes out of the Sydney Review of Books Open Secrets book, which came out in 2022, called A Glovebox of One's Own, and 2 very revealing essays from Intimate Antipathies, which came out in around this time in 2019. So this is quite a unique book that we have here today, and I'm just going to, for those uninitiated people in the audience, I'm just going to read a little bit about Luke and Mihaela. So Luke is an Australian fiction writer, essayist and academic at Augusta University. His first book, An Elegant Young Man, published by New South Wales Premier's Literary Award for New Writing. Intimate Antipathies, a collection of Luke's essays on the ordinary madness of the writing life, was published in 2019, and he was the co-editor of Second City, a collection of essays from Western City published by Sydney Review of Books of Giramondo. And his short story collection, An Ordinary Ecstasy, was published in 2022, and his essays, A Glovebox of One's Own, was also published that year. So he's been published in Heat, The Australian, the Sydney Morning Herald, The Engine, Southerly, Cultural Studies Review, the London Times, 1+1 magazine, and had his work featured as a part of Brave Words Live and SBS True Stories podcast. He's also wields a mighty pen as a judge for the Writers Group for the linguistic a title which he takes very seriously and brutally, and also very kindly, in that you've been doing this for a long time and you seem to really enjoy it, genuinely seeing it as a cross-section of the writing that's coming out of Western Sydney. And then, of course, in 2023, last year, a Glovebox of One's Own was published by eLiteratura, yes, publishing house in Bucharest, in Romania. So Mihaela Cristescu emigrated from Romania to Sydney in 1970. She's a bilingual writer of prose and poetry, an editor and a translator. She holds a Bachelor of English in Power Plants and a Bachelor in Literature and a Master's in Linguistics. Her writing has been published in 5 volumes of poetry and prose in Australian literary magazines, including Zine West, Cordite Poetry and Double Dialogues. Cristescu is secretary of Year Writers Group and serves on the selection team for Zine West. She has edited an annual bilingual Romanian, Australian anthology of poetry and prose since 2016, and she is also an incredible videographer, photographer who makes her own videos and outro poetry, some which I think are just such beautiful portraits of the city that was the city of Parramatta. And I'll also add that this year she was also recognised as a finalist for Parramatta Citizen of the Year. So so we might start with a bit of a reading. Rick, would you mind cracking open and crack the language?
Yeah, sure.
Two types of crack.
Okay. I can always crack. Okay, so the just again, thank you, Augusta. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And I just want to start by saying thanks to everyone for being here. I really can't tell you how much I appreciate it. And I consider this to be a meagre offering of thanks to Mihaela and her labour of love, because, you know, I wrote these essays originally, but it was Mihaela's hard work and dedication that brought this book into being. And I just want to acknowledge that now off the top, and then we can get into that in some detail a little bit later, but whatever. Okay, I'll just read. So this is from the titular essay. It's time to put all that behind me, some voice begins to say, to get back into the Camry with the detritus of the day, about you like moths and cicada song that enter your room at night and all your guts are moving out of tune. And you fill up the tank not knowing if you can afford to get home, but it's run out someday, so it's safer not to check how much of nothing is left. Just fill up at the one BP station on the corner near the motorway, where once you spoke to the girl on the glasses working there, and now every time he asks about your wife, you say, yeah, she's good, and hope that if you keep the routine up, the law of habit will keep the finances secure. And the sun is setting in your eyes now on the windshield like a screen of formaldehyde to keep the fresh you in the tomb you're belted into. And it's a funeral march you're engaged in, marching out of the dying city's organs, and the flaring lights of the street begin to shine on every face. The blinking lamps near the motorway give off their indigestions, and now you're back into the traffic shuffle, each traveller on the road with you another coughing private hearse. It shadows on every expression like a masking veil, and the evening radio sounds ashamed. It keeps up a gallows humour as we slum back past the moon man's watch. His sagging eyes are now in their full despair, and the factory's flames are sombre lanterns over a kind of moving bog of shadows. And the bright lights of the Parramatta Raceway are swarming with insects, and some night birds are on the wing above the yellow sky's last light. And our reflections look back at us in the rearview mirrors, red brake lights bobbing and swinging before us on the winding motorway like an eternity of mourners leading candles up the mountainside. And the cold cramp of the coming night and the blue and orange blinking in the windows of the apartments beside the roadside speaks in a kind of electric code. And all of this is too much, I know it is. But I was bitter in those days from desperation, and I was in that middle age of innocence where one mistake's complete defeat for losing all, and I thought the life perpetual of the Carman was the end of hope, never to get back to the beggary of proper writing, and the only consolation was my son, waiting for me every morning, his blue-eyed reason for being. Though there was one morning I came to his door and he handed me a portrait of his busy life, aged 4, going on 5, and he had drawn all the attendant characters, his friends and cats and goldfish, and so many grandparents. The page was crowded with their faces. He pointed to them one by one and announced their names as if I couldn't recognise them, and at last his finger fell on a twisted figure in the background, a man with drooping shoulders and sagging bloodshot eyes driving a car in a doleful distance from all the rest, stuck on a road with no apparent exit. That's you, he said, and I stood very still in the doorway, holding on to the portrait as though it was the lever of the earth. And that evening I drove home the usual way, and a storm moved over the night so the wind blew out behind the thunder like a spill of ink covered in the stars, and I saw electric spiderlings flashing in the clouds all the way up the mountains, trailing an armada of jack-o'-lantern traffic in the headlights behind me, heading for that black mountain ahead.
But Mihaela, it is now time for you to give us the music of your language. And thank you very much, Augusta. And you are only for the presentation today, but for being with us for the moment for 1 year. Thank you. And now everybody should bear with me because the technology will make.
Am văzut în spiritul evident rău obosit al vieții obișnuite că nu exista niciun motiv să fim livrați vreodată de vândătoarea lui Armoneari. Un alt mod de a spune că nu va mai fi nevoie să scrie niciodată. Nu e nevoie deloc, deoarece nicio particulă din această ciudată constelație a unui raie nu ar fi trebuit vreodată să fie revizuită sau răscumpărată, nici de mine, nici de oricine altcineva. Agitatorii, maniacii, subversivii, nihiliștii, vandalii, barbarii, ticăloșii și excrocii se aflau întotdeauna în așteptare și totuși voința colectivă era în mod copleșitor de partea mamelor, a taților și a bebelușilor care aveau nevoie să fie hrăniți. Cu toate greșelile lor, dragostea și grija câștigaseră întotdeauna. Altfel, lumea s-ar fi sfârșit și nimic din ceea ce era în jurul nostru nu ar fi avut sens. În ciuda ororilor și stupidităților implacabile a existenței pământești, totul va fi bine atât timp cât oamenii și tații vor respecta planul. După ce am avut această epifanie stupidă, am intrat în cel mai apropiat magazin de băuturi alcoolice, am cumpărat 2 six-pack-uri și m-am întors în camera liberă a apartamentului vărului meu. Eu am desfăcut țaidăua și am băut un zâmbet lung de emile de față. Ceea ce trebuia să fac pentru tot restul vieții ar fi fost să fiu tată.
Thank you so much. I think that gives you a bit of a flavour, but when you see sort of like Luke punches out sort of sentences out into the ether, like he's about to pummel someone to death, and then you've got Mihaela who sort of like swings and sings it through to us. There's a sort of different musicality, I think, in the language. The tone of the tenor is kind of still very powerful. Of course, as my Campbell has said, Parramatta is home to a thriving literature scene and a very large concentration. I think Parramatta specifically is about 56% of people actually speak a different language at home. So I think there is sort of something to be celebrated in multilingual and bilingual work. But my first question, because this is about meeting in translation, was for Mihaela, which is, I would like to know, before you arrived in 1970, what did you know about Australia or Australian literature before you arrived here?
The answer is very easy to be said because not so much. Yes, I must admit it was just a very good idea my husband had to come in Australia, and I just agreed. It was not that much all the time, and he said, "Okay, you're ready there. Yes, go there." And we'll see what's going on. Yes, we'll see what's going on. Yes, I think that eLiteratura will ring a bell to me because it was published in Romania a long time ago. Yes, because it was somehow linked with one of our cities near the Black Sea, Constant, and the name of Ovidius probably says something. Yeah, so this is almost 70 years time.
Wow, because usually people know. See, 1970 was before Crocodile Dundee, so you didn't have that to fall back on. It was quite a few years before Luke was born. So, of course, you know, the fact that it was David LaLouf, though, he was one of our sort of literary treasures. You know, that's kind of quite, for some of you, that's quite obscure for us, but for others, it's kind of quite significant. That's really interesting. So, you didn't know much about the snakes or the lizards or anything like that?
Nothing like this. I think that I was worrying myself about the seasons. Yes, because we came with 2 children, so I had to know exactly what warm things is to take with me. But that should be all.
Yes, right. So you were sort of prepared from a practical point of view.
Yes.
But the artistic was a mystery, except for David LaLouf. That is, I think that's still accurate for some people. Even for some Australians, Mihaela. Luke, your origin story is well known. You are one of Western Sydney's favourite tattooed sons. I think it was 2 weeks ago, I was at an event where someone suggested that you were the best of the West and that you could have that tattooed on your back, and you said, yes, please. My first question is, have you been tattooed in the time since that suggestion was made?
Well, this might surprise you, but no.
That's surprising.
If anyone wants to contribute to the Best in the West tattoo on Luke Carman, I'm more than happy to do it. You don't get me out of pocket for that, but I think it's important.
Excellent, excellent. So, besides being sort of washed up out of, bear with me, out of Liverpool Boys High, and you know, really having a maniacal reign over the yellow minds of the creative literary sort of scene in Western Sydney since your big blockbuster book. I'm wondering what you knew, if younger Luke from Little Boys High, did he know anything about Romania before you met Mihaela?
No. I knew that it was and continues to be a country, but I didn't know any details about it. I didn't even know an equivalent native belief. I didn't know anything.
So you detail in the top of this, in the lovely introduction, you remember meeting Mihaela at Mars Hill Cafe and not being able to place her accent so much, but thought her poetry was kind of quite atmospheric and quite sort of otherworldly in some ways.
Yeah, sophisticated. And that was the problem because when I first met her, I was asked, I had this meeting at Mars Hill Cafe. I don't know if some people here will know the Mars Hill Cafe. It was kind of this bohemian, ramshackle kind of place. And, it was almost a beatnik style cafe because they had poetry events and stuff like this there. And Sue had invited me to come and listen to people read their stories. It's a group of writers to read their stories and give some feedback. And when you're not a poet, you can kind of give feedback to poetry as long as it's not at a level of accomplishment, because once it goes beyond that, what can you say? I'm not a poet, so I can't give any. And as soon as Mihaela started speaking, I go, oh my God, that's it. I'm out. There's nothing I can say. But I remember it was complex, it was sophisticated, and it had, I think it was a piece for generative fortresses, I think. And it was obvious that Mihaela was not only a poet, but a linguist. And I think it was even explicit in the poem. There might have been some mention of, linguistic theory or something like that. Only could tell me if I'm wrong. And so all I could say was, I said something stupid about Chomsky, because that's the only linguist I know. And then afterwards, Mihaela came up to me and gave me the collection Generative Fortresses, I think. And that was the beginning of learning about Romanians. One of their defining characteristics is that they're extremely generous. They're the most generous people. They just keep giving you stuff. And when I was there in Romania, I was at this talk, and afterwards this man came up to me and he just gave me this bag. And it had all this stuff in it. And one thing I took out was this big wooden spoon. When I was looking at it, and I was looking at him, and I was like, oh, thank you so much. And then, this gentleman went away, and then an organizer came over, and I said, why are you giving me the spoon? And then she looked at me, and she's like, you're like a little child, aren't you? So innocent, so but they just keep giving you stuff, is the point of that story.
Did they give you a saucepan?
They gave me a saucepan, they gave me a bell, they gave me gift certificates, they gave me food, they just kept giving me stuff. They took me out to restaurants, they bought me chocolate de bota. It was just amazing.
What is that, Mihaela? No, what is
It's a soup.
What's it made of?
Of pork.
Oh, it's a
Yes, of belly of the pork.
Oh, delicious. So they just kept giving you,
Yeah.
because you're like a little child.
Yeah. It's so innocent. You're just like a little child. Love it.
I guess that is very satisfying, isn't it? To rapidly gifted things. It's lovely. So I'm just wondering, so for you, Mihaela, do you remember first meeting Luke? Was it indeed that night at Mars Hill? And I would like to know, was there something, what was it that compelled you to give your beautiful poetry to this person?
I have some other memory.
Oh, another memory.
Yes, I do have another memory. And it was the 9th of October, 2010.
Oh, God.
2010?
Yes. I think that you would be aware of this. So we were at Connex Studios in Parramatta, and it was the West competition and awards on the day. So then Luke won the first prize, and I just won the third prize. So we were in the competition. Yes. we still have photos from the day.
So there is evidence.
Yes, it's evidence, absolutely.
I don't know if there's any evidence of his Mars Hill.
Yes, we do now. Yes,
There are photos there too.
yes.
We will verify this, fact check it, get back to you on the action truth matter. So you met him, he won first prize, you won third prize, and then he became the king judge of this forevermore. And tell me, what did you think of his work when you first encountered it? What was your, did you have a reaction? Was it very familiar to you, or did it seem very strange? What did you think of its writing?
Well, I was very careful because I don't know too many at that point in time. I was not aware of too many writers in Australia, so I read it very carefully. And then, of course, the next few books. Yeah. So, like that was my purpose, just to know the novels, the writers in Australia.
So you started reading Luke's work, and you got to know it even more, which is that's very studious of you, Mihaela, and very sort of on. That's how I know you. You're very hardworking. Luke, you've been the unofficial, or perhaps the official ambassador for Australian writing to Romania for the last 7 years, with the volumes of the Australian, Romanian Australian anthology. And in October last year, you bought a coat and a ticket, and you went off to Romania to launch this publication. Can you share a little bit about that story? Can you tell us the story of you coming to Romania? Because that puts you in a plane, not in a car. So you're out of your usual environment, and you're in a different country, a stranger in a strange land. Do you want to tell us a little bit about your impressions of Romanian culture and literature?
Well, they go together because I had my introduction, my pouring into Romania was through Mihaela, and so when I arrived there, it was to launch a book, and essentially everyone I met as part of that trip was eLiteratura scene. Poets, translators, novelists, playwrights, etc., etc. And so maybe it gave me a false impression in some ways, but it seemed to me that the Romanians, they terrible drivers, but in terms of their literary culture, it's alive and well in a way that is just Australia could not possibly relate. And that was my experience. And as I'm saying, it may have been skewed by the fact that everyone there was a writer, and I was being taken around and shown, the busts and the statues of authors and writers. They were all obviously fascinated in this. And talking about David Malouf, David Malouf came up many, many times. I was meeting people in Romania. They'd ask me about David Malouf. They'd ask me about Patrick White. They'd talk to me about Antigone Kefala. They talked to me about all these Australian authors and writers that they knew about. In fact, when I went to this talk, and afterwards, I said, it was a Q&A afterwards, and a young woman said to me, could you please talk a little bit about the influence of orthodox imagery in Patrick White's later novels? I don't even have a famous idea. But, so they were well, they knew our literature, so to speak, very, very well. In fact, even when I said, Patrick White, tried to stumble through and say something, only Nobel Prize week, and then someone said, you don't count Kurt Zaya as an Australian author? What's the situation? They really knew their stuff. And I think they were sort of looking at me like, who the hell is this guy?
Did they ask you to prove that you are actually Australian?
Well, there was one point, it was amazing in the Q&A, Keith right off, this little kid, he was in a school uniform, and he goes, could I please ask you about the situation with the spiders and the snakes he was doing? And so I just started talking about our animals, and everyone really got into it then, They asked about kangaroos, wombats, all this kind of stuff. And I just felt this total compulsion to exaggerate, it's a dude, like my uncle was eaten by a crocodile. kind of madness. I've got snake bites all over me, and there was, oh wow, I eat kangaroo by the bushel,
That's right, because they come in bushels.
It's a unit of meat.
So the unit of kangaroo meat that you're eating generally. But I think that's kind of quite interesting that you suddenly Steve Irwin when you were in Romania.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's quite a transformation, like.
It was.
Because he's dead. Already.
As a matter of fact, I wrote an article called "How I Killed Steve Irwin." That was published.
It's not non-fiction, though, is it really?
No, it is.
Right. Okay. Well, I think we'll move swiftly on from it. So there is a very rich culture, and you actually arrived during a book fair,
Yeah.
and you also were a part of a sort of like a bit of a sort of edgy kind of scene as well. You were sort of co-opted by a gang of poets and literary blokes, really.
Well, I mean, it wasn't bulky. Really,
It wasn't?
It wasn't. The people that I met that took me around and became, wonderful people and became close friends with their close friends. God, I met them once. But, they were very good friends. We were very close.
Yeah.
So it's Andre Vella and his friend Bogdan. And they belong to a group. And Mihaela, correct me, I think it's called Fictura? Fictura. And it's this thriving vicinity of young and established writers that are doing amazing things over there. Got a really, really strong. But their leader is, so to speak, is a woman. I've forgotten her name. Maybe Mihaela, you know this person. Rusti?
Mrs. Husty.
And she's an established, important Romanian author. But she's the head of the group.
So kind of like our finishing school with Vasile Poenaru.
Precisely like that. Absolutely. Yeah.
Isn't that nice when you see those little resonances as well between the two countries? Mihaela, while many translators have the task of translating a single book, as I said before, you've kind of created your own, and you've drawn out those 3 essays from Luke's work, and you put it into this collection which features artworks from your long-term collaborator, Canadian-based Mihaela Cristescu. Can you talk a little bit about the process of curating this collection? Like, how did you select the work? Because Luke does write a lot of essays, and there's a lot to choose from, and they're not all from intimate antipathies either. So can you talk us through how you made the choices, how you made the selection?
Well, let me start with something else related to this book, and because there must be a lot of process.
Yes.
For me, the book started, the project started a long time ago, maybe 3 years and a half ago, when I had the flash of diligence in front of me. I was not thinking, I was just awake. And I saw all of us at State Library of New South Wales, as we usually do, we like the culture very much, indexing them as we usually are there. And especially talking to people around him about his journey to Romania. So I knew 3 years ago that it's done. It's completed. The rest was just work.
I look forward to you having images and visions for me. So you can also get the book in a trip to Romania and perhaps make friends with a man called Bogdan. I think that would be good.
Absolutely.
Yes, yes, we will. Please do the destiny for me. That's wonderful.
But a more real level. Yes. So I knew that the publishers in Romania are very much interested in publishing a translation from Australian writers.
How did you know that? Had that been a conversation that happened?
Yes, I did. Starting in 2017, I suppose, with the editor of this book also, Vasile Poenaru. So they were available for this. And also I knew that for me it would be a very extraordinary challenge. So I would have to do it. So the only thing that I needed to do is to actually ask the question to Luke. And I don't know why usually did he have, but he said yes.
Did you have a vision?
Not a not a visual one, but I think this. I mean, the translation into Romanian was sort of the accumulation of redemption for these essays.
What do you mean?
Well, both two of the three essays came from intimate antipathies, and it's a long story. Maybe we don't have time to get into this.
No, I think we've got time.
We've got time.
Yeah. Oh, yes, it does.
Well, so this book, which two of the three essays, and essentially all three of the essays came out of this. It's a long story, but I guess that's what we're here for. So this book started when just after my first little square book, An Elegant Young Man, came out, and it did pretty well. Nobody had any expectations that it was going to find the readership or be reviewed or anything, but it did. It found its own little thing going on in the world, and it had some good reviews. And so my publisher, Ivory Germano, he was really keen to have more. He was like, okay, well, let's take advantage of this small momentum here and do something with it. But it just so happened that I was unable to capitalize on the momentum that the book had because I lost my mind. I went completely nuts. And so while I was handling all that, I wasn't able to write. I wasn't able to organise myself enough to put together some fiction. But as I was coming through this, psychosis that I experienced, I was starting, as I started to get healthy again, I was able to write some essays. And, I had this total paranoid psychosis, and when I was on the mend, I was starting to write essays, but they were paranoid in character. I was writing essays like Getting Square in a Joking Circle, where I was claiming that, the literary scene was dominated by psychic vampires, and, I mean, it's true, but
Too much questions.
only lunatic would talk truth about it. So, I was writing, and it was getting attention, but negative attention. And so my publisher, he's like, well, all this negative attention, maybe we could put together a book and get lots of it. And I told him, no, that's a dumb idea, very dumb, very bad. But he wouldn't hear, he wouldn't listen to reason. He's like, nah, let's do it. So I figured, all right, I was asking you to write this essay collection. I'm going to write it, but I'm going to write it for him. I'm going to write it for him because nobody else is going to want to read it. And I wrote it with him in mind, like a whole collection was written with him as the reader in mind. And he's a great reader, this guy. He's the chief publisher of Luke Germano. So, I didn't have any mercy as I was writing them. These are really kind of elaborate, ornate, indulgent essays in a way, grammatically, thematically, discursively, any way you want to look at it. Because I know that's the kind of stuff he likes. And so what happened was, I know this is also, but what happened was the proof copy, I remember I went into his office and it was sitting on his desk and he's just looking down at it and he's got a big smile on his face and he's saying, look, this is the one they're going to remember you for, And I didn't have the heart to tell him, otherwise, he was totally deluded. And then the book comes out and, it staked the place up. It got all these, negative reviews, like reviews so savage that people were calling me going, and I got blacklisted, blackballed, whatever else you like, cancelled, and there was this big pylon, and so Ivor's vision was that it would be.
It could launch you into yeah.
And so what happened was, just very slowly, a few people over the years got in touch with me and said that they kind of liked it, and there were always people who I deeply respected, and that kind of had this ameliorative effect on everything that had gone into it. And then all of a sudden, it accumulates, it culminates in Mihaela's vision that I've heard about now for the first time, that you want to translate. And that made it all worthwhile. And that made Ivor's vision kind of coming true in his secondarity in sort of an unexpected way. And so it was a really beautiful thing, and I no longer deeply regret authoring this book, thanks to the love and affection that Mihaela has paid to some of the essays.
This is the last one.
Did you know that? Did you know that this was a stinky book?
Not really, but it's fine. I knew the story.
You knew that story, and you knew that there was because really there are two essays in here that come from there. I think it's intimate antipathy.
Yeah,
it's father and son.
Intimate antipathy and father and son, but even the third one, a Glovebox of one's own, that was a smaller version of a similar thing where the essay Father and Son has a passage here towards the end where the narrator is driving through the tunnel. What's that tunnel? West Connects, or one of the tunnels in Zealand. And the editor of the City Review of Books at the time, Katrina Metis-Price, read that essay and she said, well, I really like that one little section. Could you write an essay about that of its own? And that became a Glovebox of one's own. So a Glovebox of one's own grows out of intimate antipathies, and then all three are wrapped up in.
And then, and then this is the sort of grows again.
Absolutely.
Wow, that's really quite fascinating. So did you ask Luke for those particular essays? Did you select them yourself?
No, I didn't select them. Yes, so just a collaboration. Yes. Luke selected. Yes.
Yeah. Fantastic. And then what about this amazing cover?
Yes, there's a story also.
Yeah, tell me.
So, Mihaela Cristescu is one of our dearest friends from Ottawa, Canada, and she's an architect and a visual artist, and she does extraordinary paintings, artistic paintings. So then we had a chat about our new book, Glovebox of one's own, and I told her a little bit of the story, and she was very much interested. And in there I sent some photos of Luke, and she said, "We do your painting."
Really?
Yes. So actually, the painting exists. Yes. So Elisabeth Cristescu offered the painting to Luke. Yes, and it arrived in Australia, and we framed it. And then I think that last year, yes, it was when we went for an hours of one anthology. I'm 7. Yes, we offered this to you.
Yes, I remember Luke opening it, and it was like, again, with the child was sort of so delighted. You were flushed, and you just couldn't believe that was. That you were gifted such a beautiful painting.
Yeah, because there's a little bit of a thing with that story with that picture. It's on the internet. The photo, you found it online. Yeah?
Yes, I do.
And it's a black and white photo, and it was supposed to be the cover of something. I can't remember now. It was taken at an event, and they were going to use it as the headshots for the artists. And I really loved that photo. I was like, oh, that's my favorite photo of me ever. And then I saw in the email chain that the person who was organising the headshots said, oh, they all look good, except that one of Luke. It looks like a swamp monster. So we can't use it. Wow. And I was like, but it's great, And okay, they just put it on some website somewhere. And then all of a sudden it's come back to life. It's this beautiful painting.
Yes, and I don't know, like this is quite a well-groomed swamp monster.
Yeah,
isn't it? Like very angry looking.
Well, it's like in the translations, there's a certain beauty added to the figure that wasn't in the original. It was quite a dusty, gross swamp monster kind of photograph.
And now it's sort of like you're in some sort of church, some sort of cathedral, perhaps. But it's I didn't realise when one covered this redemptive story. I like that. Luke, you've been published internationally, so through the New York-based 1+1 magazine, where you wrote about the bushfires of 2019. Also for the London Times magazine, where you wrote about Australia's response to COVID in a very amusing way, I have to say. And now a Romanian translation. It's clear that world domination might be next. So next steps. When you're writing, are you conscious of writing for an international audience or an Australian audience? Like when you're not just writing for either, who are you writing? Like who do you think you're writing for?
I got asked to write about the fires.
How?
The fires. I was contacted by people that I didn't know overseas. So I just get this email from this journalist saying, "Hey, we'd like a report on the situation with the fires in Australia. We think you'll be the person." I don't know what the hell
That sounds like a phishing scam, doesn't it?
But it was a News Limited person, and I realised that I could easily get a career working for News Limited because they wanted me to write these kind of stories of, these kind of apocalyptic stories that make the country look like the total like this canary in the coal mine of the end of the world or something like this. And they were paying so well. They were paying so well. Like for a 4,000-word essay, they give me $8,000. And so I was like, my God, if I could make this work, I can quit everything else and just live off of this stuff. But you make a deal with the devil and things go bad. And so what happened was eventually they started asking me to write pure propaganda. They wanted me to write about how the country had become a fascistic state, that Australians had lost their way and become mindless slaves to face diapers and things like that, and how COVID turned us into an island prison. I just didn't feel comfortable cashing those checks anymore. But that's how it started. And I got to do one about fire. I got to do one about floods. I got to do one about pestilence. It was really going really well until I couldn't.
You had a moral conscience.
Yeah, that's what happened. But I don't know how they found me or why. Maybe they went to other people who already had their moral conscience and couldn't go along with it. But it just came completely out of nowhere. I don't know why they landed on me. But in every one of them, I played up the Australian stuff as much as possible,
What does that mean?
I put koalas in there, and people with, stubbies and beer cans and wearing folds and saying, "G'day, mate, how you going? Did you hear about the fires last week?" All that kind of stuff. Because it was kind of fun, and I got a lot of responses from people overseas, telling me to stop doing that. No, people overseas saying you're making fools out of us, so we don't appreciate it. Cut the crap, we can see what you're doing. So that was kind of interesting too.
Yeah, I love the backlash from an expat. That's great.
Particular sentences. It was like I had this old man say, "I'll stand stuffed in George Street if that turns out to be the case." And this guy wrote me like this 20-page screed about how it was a disgrace to Australians everywhere and so on and so forth. It was great.
Like a literary Alvin Purple. That's fantastic. Okay, Mihaela, the task of translation. You say in your intro that Luke's writing was an interesting linguistic challenge because of the specific contemporary realities of in Sydney, geographical, culinary and etymological. There are 30 footnotes inside this fantastic book. Some of them which include explanations, and they include Henry Lawson, Tiki Torch, West Connects, Snowy Mountains, M4, Drive-In, Triple M's Moon Man in the Morning, Toyota Camry, Barista, Arnott's Biscuits, which is describing what a Sayo is, and my favourite, you explain Baba Black Sheep, and also when Luke refers to what he's getting from Dan Murphy's, there's also a six-pack of beers, and even one of Luke's play on words, a Carman is a Carman is a Carman is also explained. I'm wondering if there was much that was completely non-translatable into Romanian from what Luke offers the world, Luke as horizon.
not very among fabrics, so no. But there were some issues I had solved. Yes. It's anywhere from the morphology to the syntax, semantics, and pragmatics. The most important one was about the sentence, because Luke is writing in such long sentences. So it works in English. But I use a trick when I translated this. I don't know if it is a mean one, but I use this one. So I read for myself these long sentences many times, hundreds of times, until I got them inside of me to have a direct relationship with the text. One sentence with one sentence. Yeah. Because otherwise it would be impossible for me to translate it in Romanian. Also, I used another trick. These long sentences do not have a kind of stop in English, but they need to have a stop in the Romanian, so that the reader in Romanian can understand what is going on. I didn't want to put a full stop, but I did put some small words in the Romanian, yes, to coordinate the sentences from English. And that was again the most important challenge I had. The explanations are only for the readers. They need to know more about reality in Australia. So I tried just to let them know all the supposed questions before they ask the questions. So they can actually read the book a little bit easier. Yeah. And then I had some Romanian friends tell me that they actually look on Google for these small things. Say it's good. So look at the book, you have the images, you have the translation, then you look on Google or you ask questions and you learn more about Australia. Or you've had a farm, which is another one as well. Which I know I'm talking about this, and this seems a bit silly, but do you not have those children's songs in your? You don't have Baba Lakshmi in Romanian. You don't have children's rhymes. Yes, we do. Yes, we do. But not those ones. I will answer in a different way. Yeah. So in Romania, when I was a child and I started to go to school, it was compulsory for all students to learn a foreign language from year 2. So we started with English, for example. So I remember very well my teacher, my first English teacher, teaching us this kind of songs. I am not very much aware of what is actually going on in Romania now. Probably they are learning a foreign language, but I don't know exactly what the teachers are going to do.
Well, it is. Yeah, that's interesting, because it is that sort of, from a young age, you sort of, yeah.
The second language was compulsory for year 5.
Wow. Interesting. So everyone, this is going to be my last questions for Luke before I throw it open to the audience for anybody. You may have a question, and someone might have a different thing about this. Luke, you've acknowledged in your opening for this particular book the excessive eccentricities of style that your essays, and you've really heartily praised Mihaela for very generously going into what you sort of liken to Edith Grossman's description of translation as a utopian act of infinite optimism. You show your gratitude a lot to Mihaela, but there's also a huge amount of trust and faith that what Mihaela has written in Romanian is true to what your sort of intent or what the spirit of their work is. I'm just wondering, can you tell us a little bit about what that's like to hand over your work to a translator, especially when you don't have any tandem on their language at all.
Well, that has been wonderful. That has been just one of the most beautiful things that's ever happened to me as a result of my writing, is to be able to entrust it to Mihaela. And I think anyone who's in his room already would be in no doubt that Mihaela is a trustworthy person to give your work to. And so that made it so much easier. But the result was the surprising part. It's just how blissfully ignorant of Romanian I am, that it's a total freedom. You know, when I don't know if any other writers here who have had their work translated and feel the same way, but, you know, the analogy I can think of is, you know, like I'm a big Orson Welles fan, and the story is that he never watched his own films because it would be too upsetting to look at them and you realize there's nothing I can do about all the problems with them, you know? And so, like, I started by reading, and even as I'm reading it out loud, I can say, oh my God, all these errors, all these problems, you would do it differently, you could this sentence, etc., etc. But when it's in Romanian, it's completely, beautifully perfect. There's nothing I can do about it. There's nothing. For all I know, it's so beautiful in Romanian that it's like poetry. I don't know. There's nothing I can do about it. It's just totally blissfully free in a language that I can't understand. And it's been so wonderful. But of course, trusting Mihaela was the easiest thing I've ever had to do as an author.
Isn't that a beautiful thing? That is so lovely. It is. Thank you very much.
So lovely. Okay, question time. Yes. Your first one. First cab off the rank.
I'd just like to start by saying kudos to you both and it's a real thing to be. So I might preface this question with a quote from Van Gogh, which was, I bought all my art, use my paintings, and in the process I lose one mind. So it is not too intrusive and grossly inappropriate of me to ask you, what role do the rigours of writing an elegant young man play in the sort of psychological battles that you found after it was released?
That's a very perceptive question, because as far as I'm concerned, it was almost all due to the rigours of, I mean, you can't call them rigours. I did write the book, but no rigour was involved. The reaction to the book probably got me off balance, just because I didn't expect there to be one, but also because I wasn't psychologically prepared for that question, that situation. My dream was always to be a published author. I didn't think it was going to happen necessarily. And then I think this is the case for a lot of people. You know, you want to be a writer. You don't necessarily think about what happens after you are one, or you do get your book published, or whatever it is. So I didn't have a plan for that part of my life, the post-published part, and I didn't expect there to be any conversation about the book afterwards. Didn't expect it. So one of these that kicks off intimate antipathies, and I think it's an attempt to address that exact question, is I got into writing because I'm an extreme introvert. Partly, not totally, but partly because I'm an extreme introvert. That's why the writing life appeals to me. I can create my own little world without any of yours in it. You know, it's my little world, and I can redress all the things that I don't like about reality in it, and I can do that in my little room on my own. But the writing life is it's a public engagement. You know, your success is based on exposure. You're constantly talking to people. You're constantly in front of people. You're constantly surrounded by public. In a way, it's like that Neil Young song, "At the Beach." I need a crowd of people, but I can't face them day to day. That's the writing world. That's the publishing world, and I just wasn't prepared for it. But to reverse that vein, quote. There's I forget. Someone can remind me who this person is. It's Natalie Goldberg, I think. Is we're trying to become sane in our poems and stories. And I think it's true that a lot of what we're doing is dealing with mythology. You know, a lot of art is coming from this attempt to deal with the impingement of pathology, but it kind of doesn't work. It doesn't make you sane. It doesn't heal you. It doesn't. It's a good place to put it. It's a productive place to put it. But the other thing I think of is a Leonard Cohen quote, which I think is in here, because I use it all the time. I followed the course from desire to art. No, I followed the course from chaos to art, desire the course, depression the cart. And in hindsight, I think I would have been, I believe I'm a terrific writer, but I just can't prove it because the work doesn't exist. And I think if I wasn't so unbalanced psychologically, I'd be a much better writer in some ways. I don't know if that answers anything, but it does. Okay, thanks.
Hello, yes.
I actually have a question for you. How do you read back to Luke's translation in English?
That's a great question.
Because you said you had to do those little nuances where you had to sort of move things about and change things slightly in order for it to be musical and
Beautiful, that's why.
No, I have to do what I have to do in order to be able to actually continue reading the book. Yes. So the question was if I read
your translation version back to Luke.
so a reproration, you want to say.
Yeah.
And the changes are very small.
Okay.
But there's not any major change in English. No. Maybe edit a comma or maybe edit a small word for coordinating things,
Yeah.
but nothing major. No.
Thanks for that tour. That was fascinating. I think I loved in particular your discussion about and reading the rhythm of a sentence so that it's comprehensible to Romanians. Because I think one of the things we don't acknowledge as much from translation is that like it's such a creative art in itself. Like you are writing a new book, even though it's Luke's book. You are essentially writing another creative work, really, not just. It's not just about like changing the words, as you pointed out, it's about thinking about the rhythm and how the rhythm and the tone translates. So I love that discussion. But my question was really, Luke has written both fiction and non-fiction, and particularly in a book where you've taken stuff from multiple works. You couldn't have fiction or you could have only fiction. Like, why did you choose to use non-fiction as opposed to fiction?
Oh no, it was just a collaboration with him. So we established some terms in the beginning, and then he offered the essays.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Then why did you offer essays and not like essays of fiction or fiction?
I don't know, but one thing to point out is, and maybe Mihaela, you can talk about this a little bit, but so this is a collection of essays, right? It's 3 essays. But you see, it's described as short stories.
Yeah.
And I think that's a translation thing too. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, I think we've spoken about this. And from a Romanian point of view, they maybe are not essays. That's not the correct way to look at it.
This is what we consider as from the editing point of view. And it was not my choice or the next choice, it is Vasile Poenaru's choice.
Which core short story, and did she give like further justification as to why he was more writing short stories and not essays from the Romanian point of view?
Yeah, this is what we understand in short prints. Yes, an essay is more for Romanian, probably just like a description or of something, a description of a landscape or something like this. So it doesn't describe a person choice of a short novel or something like this. It doesn't involve people as an essay. You write essays for your school, probably, in Romania, like here also. So the essay name is not really proper when you buy a book in Romania, but the short story is not.
So when they keep in nothing entitled like a collection of essays in Romania that is published, like, I don't know, in Australia we have a lot, particularly now it's very trendy actually, the form of very popular lots of collections of essentially what easy foreign memoirs in a foreign language book. Memoir really in a form of a collection of essays. Would they not be like adults writers of literature in Romania to publish collections of essays, or is that just not like it would only be something that would be considered like highly academic, with not something for, I guess, that people a more broad audience finds planning out like the kinds of collections of essays that we publish here and there currently kind of trendy.
Right, so it's not academic, it's not highly academic. Yeah, so the short stories you explain better in Romania. But this is not about an academic level. No, it's just short stories.
And one of the reasons I love that that's happened is because, as I said, with the Activities, it's written, it's a collection of essays, but it's written for Ivor-Indig's sensibility, or what I took Ivor's sensibility to be. And so I know he's a modernist reader, and so he takes something like, Glovebox of one's own, obviously, a room of one's own. He just step into the first few pages of Room of One's Own, and very easily. It's obviously, explicitly, it's playing with fiction, narrative. The I is just a grammatical convenience for a being that doesn't exist. And the very first image of her is from, in fact, I usually stop in the first couple of pages of Room of One's Own, because what happens is the narrator goes to this little bit of water there where another grad is paddling, and it describes having this idea being like a fish that has been thrown back into the water and is darting hither and thither, flashing wildly, and then their thought is interrupted for the reasons which we know about in that talk, lecture, essay, book of fiction, whatever it is. But then Luke also describes her ideal essay in the next paragraph there, which is something, I can't remember exactly, but I'll paraphrase it like this. Like a flash of lightning moving through the essay, revealing its beauty and its flaws, something like that. And so I thought, okay, that's the kind of essay that I'm going to write for Ivor. It's going to be these weird, winding, stormy, flashing kind of experiences which are full of the kind of indulgences which I see in the grammatical tendencies of Woolf and another direct influence, John Berger. There's this great collection, very rare, which I know Ivor loves, called The Life of a Country Doctor. And if you read that, it's also a photo essay collection. It's an essay collection. You will never know if you took those essays out in isolation that they're not short stories. Nobody would know. But John Berger just decided, no, these are essays to me. And so that's kind of the play with form that I was trying to accommodate. So I really love that it's been translated into story.
Yes, we've got a question over there.
Just a small comment about why this essay were not considered safe Romanian, because the meaning of essay in Romanian is if someone will write about the stories and not translating them, because it's seeming more like a study rather than translation. This is why it was much more appropriate in the translation. It was short stories, not essay. So if Mihaela makes some comments or study about what Luke wrote, that would be considered an essay.
Whereas the piece here, that's a beautiful description of how the personal essay of Australia is, it largely does read like a short story as well, doesn't it? Just a auto-fiction situation. Yes, we've got one.
Sorry, I'm just a photographer, but I'm really impressed with your words today and with your questions as well. It was a fantastic and enlightened myself and my soul. And it's quite a process, like you don't understand sitting on the edge after writing the book, translating the book. It's quite a lot of work and a lot of thinking. And I remember about the Shogun, translated from Japanese to English, and the author wrote there that something that took him quite a while to give the same sense and understanding as the Japanese will understand. So I think it's a similar way in translating the book from English to Romania or to other. And also there are the false friends words. Romanian and English, they have lots of false friends words that means they mean something in English, but they mean something besides in Romania. So, but in that one, always I'm thinking about the shogun and how long it took about that translator to do the right thing to catch on. Thank you so much, and thank you so much for listening.
Thank you.
That's a wonderful thing. Mihaela, you have given such a huge gift to us today by also, and to Luke by redeeming his fall from grace after an absolute blockbuster of his really square brown book. So it's been completely reincarnated in this beautiful redemptive story because of your energy and vision and tenacity and, work that you have put into this. And congratulations, Luke, on this new lease on life that you have through this particular community as well that has embraced you and you've embraced theirs. Ladies and gents, could you please put your hands together for the community?